Hi, this is Bishop Craig in Lansing. This is take one for the week of November 15. Peace be with you. It is, in fact, November 15, and it's turned out to be a bit of a consequential Sunday for me. This afternoon, Kathy and I virtually attended evening prayer in the Northeastern Ohio Synod as Bishop Abraham Allende took leave of his synod as he prepares to conclude his service on the 30th of November. Bishop Abraham and his wife Linda are dear to Kathy and me, so we were glad to be there to hear his final sermon, and it was with a bit of sadness that we watched him remove his pectoral cross. So Abraham and Linda sometimes watch these videos, so you're in our hearts and in our prayers. And then I went from that video to watching the governor's news conference, in which beginning Wednesday with the health department, state health department has put some restrictions in place for the next 3 weeks in order to keep us safe. It sounds like if we don't do something, we could have 1,000 deaths a week in Michigan, which is pretty frightening. Those orders from the health department, you can find them online. I encourage you to have a look, and I implore you to abide by them. I was saddened that in the news conference, the Republican legislature, the leadership, tweeted their disappointment that the governor had not consulted with them, and that seemed to reveal the cause of my disappointment, that the two branches of government are not working together. They're not getting along in our state. I wish they were. I was more disappointed that the president's preferred physician in a tweet called for the state of Michigan to rise up. And, we've had some violence against the governor. So I'm going to ask everybody to calm down. And then I got an email asking if churches are exempt from these new restrictions and reminding me that the government doesn't have the authority to tell congregations what to do. And by the way, neither does the bishop. So that's all true. And so I appreciate us all wanting to preserve our control and our power. But the question remains, what are we going to do with it in this pandemic? And so it's very fortunate that this Sunday, the 22nd of November, is Christ the King Sunday. Christ the King Sunday is a relatively new festival. It dates back to 1925. It was established by Pope Pius XI in the context of increasing secularism and political strife, and the role or the relationship between the church and secular authority. And so the feast establishes that Christ is king. Christ is king over all earthly authorities. And the feast day has an eschatological dimension, which means it's concerned with the end of all time, when Christ will come and fully reign all in all. And so the reading for the Christ the King Sunday this year, or the Reign of Christ Sunday this year, is from Matthew, and it is Jesus' parable, commonly known as the parable of the sheep and the goats. And this is the parable where when the Son of Humanity comes in his glory with all the angels, he will separate the nations as a shepherd separates the sheep and the goats. And he will put some at his right hand and some at his left. And he will invite those on the one hand to enter the kingdom of God, prepared for them from the foundation of the world, for he was hungry and we fed him. And he was thirsty and we gave him something to drink. And he was sick and we cared for him. And naked and we clothed him. And in prison and we visited him. And we go, when did we do that? Well, whenever you did it to one of the least of these, you did it to me. And so my first reaction is Jesus has kind of lowered the bar in a graceful way, because we like to run to the Great Commission, go therefore and make disciples, baptize and teach. And so, the criteria you would think for the judgment would be, how many disciples did you make? Or how good of a disciple are you? But nope, Jesus graciously lowers the bar and says, if you have fed, given a drink to, clothed, cared for sick, and visited in prison, you didn't even know you were doing it for the sake of Jesus, you did it. You're in. If you didn't do it, well, that's a pretty selfish thing to do, right? So the criteria is the least of these. How did you treat the least of these? Or how did you treat the most vulnerable? How did you treat the most vulnerable? And so I expect that if Jesus comes in the midst of a pandemic, which when we get to the 29th of November and the first Sunday at Advent, we'll be talking about how Jesus comes. If Jesus comes in the midst of a pandemic, I think he will have something to say, and I would say Jesus does have something to say about wearing masks and not, about keeping social distance and not, about in-person worship and not, and how that impacts the least of these, how it impacts the most vulnerable. So I will submit that indeed the government can't tell the church what to do. In our structure, I as bishop can't tell our congregations what to do. So you have to decide. And as you decide at this point of the pandemic, what will you do for the least of these and the most vulnerable, who may very well be Jesus? And when this Son of Humanity comes with all the angels and asks about the pandemic, what do we say about why we did or didn't wear masks? Why we did or didn't social distance? Why we did or didn't congregate? Why we did or didn't suspend in-person worship? I want to have a clear conscience, at least on this one, when I come face to face with Jesus, and I encourage you to do the same. Because, I keep hearing on the news that the sick and the dying are more than numbers, and they are. These are people created in God's image, beloved by God, people for whom Jesus suffered and died. They're the least of these. And I believe we have a responsibility to them. So you get to decide, I guess. You do. Take your decision seriously. Please. There will be some congregations voting this Sunday on the 22nd, I think, to determine whether they will or will not suspend in-person worship. I don't have any authority, but I have an opinion and I have the freedom to express it. And I don't understand why at this point there would be any in-person worship going on. So they're me putting my thumb on the scale. We also have two congregations, voting to, they have transitional pastors, which means they come in for the interim, and that they can extend that to a open-ended permanent call, if you will. And I think those votes are going on Sunday. So we remember Harbor of Grace and St. Paul's in Reed City, who I think are voting this Sunday. I will spend the week once again on Zoom, with some very interesting meetings, including Thursday afternoon when I will be with the Region 6 bishops and we will bid farewell to our brother Abraham, which I guess is how I started this Take One video. So we have come full circle. Please wear a mask, keep social distance, take seriously the request that you only gather with one other household. Keep the numbers down. We can do this. It can be a very powerful witness to the love of Jesus and to us doing as Jesus asks and doing unto others as we would have them do unto us. I'm Bishop Craig. This is Take One. Peace be with you.